to get my documents in order, and we went to the workshop put on by Dr. Candeloro, and decided that I wanted to put all these documents together into a book so that I would have. So, yep. So a little bit of an introduction about the book. I was curious about my family history, and I decided to dig in and find the roots of my ancestors. This led to the discovery of knowledge about my family, which I never knew due to various circumstances, which will be covered. Another discovery that was made was that I was eligible for Italian citizenship. So I decided to pursue that. And I was given quotes of about $15,000 to $20,000 all in to get all the documents together for all the stuff. And as you'll see, a theme of this is I don't like to spend a lot of money. So I was like, I'll just do that myself. So I went ahead and started digging in. And all-in cost was about $1,500. Like I said before, I attended the workshop held here at Casa Italia and decided to take the documents I procured and compile them into a book to promote the history of the city that my ancestry is from, help people connect to their heritage, and give insight into the Italian citizenship process. So I did start from zero, I will add. When I say zero, like, I talked to my mom and she said, I think I'm Italian because of our last name. And my grandma wasn't talking. There was nothing there. So started from her, like just records of birth records, and followed it up. And so really zero on that. So it took me about 3 months to write the writing in the book, but this was an accumulation of about 2 years of document gathering and process of that. So it's made in paperback and hardcover. The paperback cost me about $9 to create through Amazon or through Barnes & Noble, and the hardcover was about $20 for the book there through Amazon. Both Barnes & Nobles and Amazon provided me an ISBN free for the books. I created it in Microsoft Word and then saved it as a PDF. And when I went to upload it, one of my biggest struggles with it was probably that both Barnes & Nobles and Amazon, when you go to write a book, they want a cover file, and then they want a PDF file of the book without the cover. And so there's some differences in the cover files. As you can see, one of them has my name on the binding, one of them I couldn't get it. And so there was some weirdness there, which is still work in progress on that, on the cover and stuff like that. But other than that, that was about the book. And now I'll turn it over to Anthony Jr. here to let you know a little bit about the history, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you more about the book.
Campo Felice di Roccella is a city located 35 miles east of the city of Palermo, which is located near Cefalù. A brief history of the city is that it's changed hands multiple times, first from the Arabs, then the Normans, the Swabians, so on and so forth. The earliest documented references of the city's existence go back to about 827, when the city was under Arab rule. Geographically, it is known for having a castle, main piazza, church, and being home to the historic Targa Florio race. Many immigrants came from the city as part of the first Italian diaspora from the 1860s to the 1920s. Loosely translated, its name means Happy Field of Rock. And as of 2020, it is shown that this town has about 7,666 inhabitants. Now on to some of the historical locations of the city. First of one being Castello di Roccella. This photo on the slide right here is a 16th century watercolor painting, which is one of the first ever recorded photos of the castle. The Castello di Roccella currently resides at about 65 feet tall, residing near the Greek ruins of Himera. Nowadays, it is used for music, art, and theater events that are put on by the municipality of Campo Felice. Located in the heart of the city is Piazza Garibaldi, which is named for the iconic revolutionary Giuseppe Garibaldi. Is known as the epicenter of business, socialization, and all the events that go on in the city, and was used. And one such example of this is when we were on our trip, and they were using it for marketing in the election campaign for who would be the mayor of the town. Located in the piazza is Santa Rosalia, the Mother Church, which was constructed in the early 18th century and named after the patron saint of Palermo, who is known for causing miracles to cure illnesses and plagues. Architecturally, it has many Baroque elements to it and was used in many ceremonies in my family's history. Unfortunately, when we went to go see it for ourselves, it was under construction for renovations. On the left here, you'll see a photo of it being renovated while we were on our trip, and to the right is an event being held near the church. The Targa Florio race. The Targa Florio race is an iconic Sicilian race that was started in 1906 and passed from Palermo all the way through Campo Felice di Rocella. It was a very dangerous and challenging race, which served as a test of endurance for drivers and their vehicles, often fraught with many elevation changes, sharp turns, various road surfaces, and narrow roads. For these same reasons, the race unfortunately ended in 1977. Nowadays, there's this historic race which vintage cars run the same exact path as the original race. On the bottom left, you'll see some photos advertising the historic race, and on the top right, you'll see a promotional poster with the date and the prize money, the 30,000 lire. On the left on this slide, you'll see that they have a poster promoting the Targa Florio Ferrari Tribute, which is the current race that runs there. On the right, another promotional poster can be seen. I'll pass it back over to my dad now to explain the rest.
Thank you. So a little bit about the family history for my family in Campo Felice di Rocella. One of the first baptisms in the new land of Rocella was in 1701 for somebody named Antonino Venturella. There's the baptism record that was found in a historical book from our trip over to Campo Felice di Rocella. On the left, you'll see an infographic kind of showcasing the dispersion of Venturellas in Sicily. It's kind of hard to see, it's in purple, but the most of them are in that Palermo area. Most of my family's from that region there. So, due to poverty and social unrest in the late 1800s, the Italian diaspora was underway in the Venturellas of Campo Felice. They began migrating towards America, especially to the Pittsburgh and New Orleans area, and then spread out from there. And this is my family tree, starting from my grandfather all the way up to about the 1700s. Was what I was able to trace it back to. As you can see, kind of hard to tell, but you see Niccolo Noto. He was kind of the big challenge of my tree. It turned out that he had unknown parents, and there's a birth certificate we'll cover there. He was left on a wheel, so it's really hard to kind of get that data, but ended up finding some things on that. So. I'll cover a little bit about the family searching process that I used, not necessarily the right way or wrong way, just the way that I found my documents for that. I found the majority of my information, which is naturalization, military, birth, death, and marriage records, free from Family Search and Antonati. There was some older information I needed to physically go to a Family Search Center for. At the Family Search Centers, you can get, they have accounts linked to Ancestry. So like I said, I don't like to spend a lot of money. So I didn't buy any Ancestry subscriptions or anything like that. They're at the Family Search Centers. They have accounts linked to that where you can just get that same information without paying for it. So this was all free. Go back, Tony. Other sources that I used were obituaries, Ellis Island, and ship records, various numerous other sources. I looked through indexed and unindexed searches. As we mentioned earlier, you have to account for misspellings that were in those names. A lot of the stuff that I found was misspelled, either slightly or very misspelled. And sometimes I had to use one clue to solve another clue. So using info from one doc to use another doc. I can name a couple different times when I would have to go look at like my grandmother's brother because his doc was readable and my grandmother's doc was not, or whatever the case was. So you can see parents or times and dates and things like that on those documents. So this is the basic family search site that I used for my great-grandfather. I wanted to find his birth certificate and kick off my citizenship process to validate my eligibility. So I just went right to Family Search and put in his first name and last name right there. The index search returned about 65,000 results, so I was not going to look through all that stuff. I knew he was born in Pennsylvania, that my grandfather was born in Pennsylvania, so I added that, as you can see over here on the pointer's not going to work on this TV. Over to the right, I added Pennsylvania into the mix, and that narrowed it down to about 180, which was a lot more manageable for me to kind of go through all of those records. Tony. I was able to use the records I found to cross-reference a couple more records that had his birth date on it. His Italian birth certificate was not indexed, so I had to go to the wiki page to start a manual search, and as you can see, there's a couple different records there. The children line up with the information that I found out, as well as the military record there. So both of those listed his birth at about 1881, so that's where I started my search at with the wiki. I went to so on Family Search, there's a wiki page. It's under the search section, and it's called like the Research Wiki, and you can click on that link. I think there's the site should be listed there. It's also in my book if you guys want to take a picture of it, but it's Family Search.
Do you ever think that you would be able to say that? Like, it's in my book.
Isn't that cool?
It is, yeah. So you go to the wiki and basically you click on Europe, and then it'll bring you a bunch of different places in Europe. I clicked on Italy and then down onto Sicily for this part right here. Next one. From there, there's multiple little sections in there where you have to kind of look at different records that you can see. I happen to select the civil registration from 1862 to 1910. And in that search, this is where things get a little bit kind of, you'll have to start reading and digging and comparing and looking. And so there's 1 million records or images in this collection. But they make it easier by breaking it down into the city and areas. So there's Campo Felice right there. As you can see, I've got highlighted on there, and so I clicked that. Go ahead, Tony. And then you can start looking through these records here. So I clicked Nati, which is the births. I found my way to the 1881 year because that's what we verified from the last documents that around his birth time. And this is one of the more time-consuming parts. But and as somebody mentioned earlier, you have to start looking for a few Italian words that you can see, and Nati is one of them. So. There's the register of births for 1881 from the city of Campo Felice. Go ahead and hit next. And this was a successful manual search. You just followed the pages through until you kind of find the birthday, and I ended up finding his birth certificate in the archives. What this allowed me to do was I provided the information on this certificate back to the commune of Campo Felice, and when I emailed them with this information, that I needed the paper copies of this, that's when they went ahead and emailed it to me for my citizenship purposes, and I had to actually get the physical copy. So there was some, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and €8 and things like this. So I had to do that, but they ended up sending me the paper copy. Good. I'll cover a little bit about Antonati. So this is another resource that I used. This is the English version of it. I think first it pops up in Italian, and you can click the English language icon there. But you go down there and you can explore to browse the archives, which I have highlighted here. Go ahead, next, Tony. And then Sicily, same way there. Next, Tony. And then I searched the registries in the state archives of Palermo. So these are the archives that they have there. Next, Tony. And then I narrowed it down by the city, which is Campo Felice, and then the year, which I have highlighted down there. And I was able to go into the registries there and find this is my great-great-grandfather's birth record right there on the left. And I also found some other death certificates and things like that, which I'll show you pictures of how they look. They all have different kind of calligraphy to them and things like that. But did want to point out what I highlighted there. As you're looking through these documents, this is where I was really focusing. because I knew I was looking for the name Dominic, and I knew I was looking for my last name, so I could kind of quickly scroll through these documents and look name by name and see. There's also indexes in the back that you can kind of get some help with there. Go ahead next, Tony. Yep. This is my fourth great-grandfather's death certificate and my third great-grandmother's birth certificate. This was actually found in two different spots. So one was in the registration of her marriage, and then one was in the city where she was actually born. So there's like, I guess she might have had to provide a copy to the city when she went to get married. So that there's actually two of the same document, just they look different, but they're the exact same document.
I was just gonna tell you on that one, so they have this section called the wedding bands.
Yep.
And when the people will get married in family search, they collect, that's where they collected all the documentation.
Yeah.
So if you find a wedding band, it's BANN, there's a wealth of information there like that, that's why I did that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, this was actually, I think they called it Allegati.
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 Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Allegati. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
a lot
it.
of information.
Yep. And so there was a ton of information for each one of their marriages and stuff like that in that Allegati. Go ahead, Nick. And this was more of the wedding-related documents. This was kind of like a promise to marry, and there was a certificate of affection and non-opposition. A couple different documents there that still, even when I Google, I have a hard time understanding exactly what they're for, but from what I gather, they're posted in public spots and kind of before the marriage for a couple of weeks.
Domestic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very official type of ceremony you gotta do to.
You got to do it, yeah. And so, but yeah, so I was able to find these and get some of that history behind these documents as well. I showed this one. This was another wedding-related document that I found in Allegati. And what I wanted to show here is that there's some bleed over from the previous page. As you can see, you can almost see the next page onto this page. And so sometimes it can make things a little bit difficult to read. Sometimes there's like paper decay or missing parts, spilled ink, all kinds of stuff that can make it pretty hard when you're looking for documents in there to read. So just when you're going through, you know, like I said, sometimes you can't even see that your ancestor's name's on those documents. So that's where cross-referencing can help with some of that. This is the Ellis Island Museum record for Maria G. Impellitteri. As you can see, they spelled it wrong. She was coming to visit her daughter, Paula Venturella, and it lists in the address right there where she was coming into New Orleans. So also lists the place of birth of Cherda, which lined up with some information I had based on her records that were there. So you can use Ellis Island as another source of kind of connecting things there.
Did you have to look up a certain year or for Ellis Island or?
Yeah, so you do. You can look up year, you can look up names. I kind of started with Venturella, then I started looking in Campo Felice. You can look at all these different records as you're going through there, and it'll tell you exactly kind of where they're coming from. This one actually said Como Felice, so it kind of was like wrong, misspelled, but yeah, so you really have to dig into a lot of this stuff as
It
you're
was
going.
normal at the time.
Yeah. Go ahead. And this is the death certificate of my third great-grandfather, Stefano Venturella, also found on Family Search. So this one was very clearly written. I was able to get some information based off of it. You know, you could see the spouse and even the mayor's name and everything else on this record. So it was a very good record for me to look at. A couple of more records. Domenico and Gaetana Scavone actually took a trip last week and saw her gravesite. She's in Pittsburgh. They brought her over after her kids came over and everything, and then they brought her over at an older age. So yeah. And then I have their marriage document from Italy, both found on Antonati as well, free of charge. So. Yep. So this is Domenico Venturella entering the United States. It shows that he was a shoemaker. It shows that he came from Naples to New York. And the columns you can see are in order of the number, the surname, the name, age, sex, occupation, country, pieces of baggage, all kinds of stuff on these records here. So, and there's pictures of the ship that he came over on. I was able to research that and found that picture of the boat that he came over on.
Was it sailing ship? Or was it the steamship?
Go back to that one. Yeah, I don't think it was steam. Yeah, I didn't research. Yeah.
It's a steamship
It might
with
be.
sails.
Yeah,
It's
steam
a
and
little bit
sails,
of both.
maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those boats back then were a little bit
Both.
both.
This one is definitely steam. So this is Gaetana coming over. She came over a little bit later, 1921. So, and that probably a little bit of both, but
Right.
definitely steam on that one. So, yep.
I noticed one of the pages in your book showed several Fabre line
Yep. Yep.
boats, and that's what my grandparents came over.
There you
on.
go. Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah. This is the sister ship. It's so exactly the same boat, but just a sister ship of it. And I had
Very nice.
this photo restored, so colorized and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yep.
Did you,
And here's the ads that you were talking about.
right,
Yeah.
did you take in, in your studies, did you take and learn Italian, or did you? were you
I
able to
did
read it?
somewhat. I not necessarily for the study part of it. I did to get the documents, like she said. I started reading a couple words. I need to know what Nazi means and all this kind of stuff. But I did it just because of the citizenship process. So I felt like if I'm going to be a citizen of the country, I should know the language of the country. So that's why me and the boys are doing that. And then my wife actually has to take a citizenship for her citizenship. She has to take a language test and be at a level B1 for Italian. So so we're encouraging that and working with her, and so family study. There you go. Next. I also tied up some of this information. Whenever I'd get a document, I'd like to cross-reference just to make sure it's valid, it's accurate, and things like that. And so I started looking up these phone directories, and this is another free resource, and found or city directories, I guess I should say. And so showed him in a couple different spots, and it showed his occupation as a shoemaker.
Where did you find the phone directories?
So this was online. There's multiple different city directories. If you just Google city name and then city directories, there's a lot of different resources for those online. So, yep. And so this is the year 1895 and 1897, and this is the New Orleans directory. And so it lines up with him being there. I ended up finding a death record here, and so this was kind of an interesting story for this. I was looking for some death records for my. Oh, yeah. You go back and click. Okay. There you go. I was looking for some death records for one of my grandparents, and I couldn't find him in Italy, and I couldn't really find him here. And part of it was I was early in my search. I didn't know how to look. I didn't know how to use indexes. I didn't know how to use asterisks or wildcard or any of that. I was just kind of winging it, and so I would put the exact name, first name and last name, and nothing would come up. And so I was like, well, I want to find his record. So when we went to Italy, they have a vault with some books from all of the historical documents of the city, and it opens like one time a week. It's this. So we went there, and they ended up opening, and the document they showed us was this one. And they said, well, it actually looks like he died in the United States of America, in Louisiana. So somebody from here had sent word that he had died over there, and they put it in their records. And so they showed me the exact date, the everything about it, the month, the year. And so I was able to use that information and go ahead and go to the next to get this document. And this explained a little bit, once I saw this, they wrote his name all crooked, and they misspelled his last name on this is the one from Louisiana, and I just, it was completely off, but the date lined up with what they told me, the reason of death, yellow fever, lined up with what they told me, so I got information from there to come back here to get the record. So
Isn't that funny?
yeah.
You can, at the tail end of the Italian death records for that particular year, I mean, whatever town it is, the year in question, there's some records that are all in longhand. You showed that in the previous slide. And so yes, in the early years, let's say into the 1910s, they would send American death certificates over back to tell the relatives there that somebody had died here. They might not otherwise know. But there's also a set of records sometimes in the later 10s, 20s called allegati di morti. And so what those are, these are death records for people from that town who died elsewhere. They might have died in World War I in battle. They might have died in New Orleans of yellow fever, and it will include the American copy of the death certificate that was sent over. Those are amazing when you find them. They don't exist for every year, certainly not for the 19th century, but those are fantastic if you have no clue. Great grandpa died, we have no idea where, we have no idea when, okay? You trip over it like that.
Yeah, and I really did. I tripped over it, and I went there with no expectation, but we went there on a Wednesday, and they said this thing only opens on a Friday, so you're gonna have to come back on Friday, and we'll let you in, we'll let you look and stuff, and they did. We came back on that Friday, and they opened the vault and took the books out, and yeah, and we started looking through them, and so yeah, and that came to this, and so now I know a little bit better. I probably would have started with just like, I know his initials, so I probably just said a D and a V and then the year, and that would have brought it up, you know, and if so, but you live and you learn a little bit with that, so, yep, Tony. And so this is the death record of his wife. I haven't been able to locate any additional marriage record for her, so I guess that she remained a widow from 1897 when her husband died to 1930, as showed by her death record. Something I did want to point out on this is the name of her father says Casper Scavone, and that wasn't right. So I think that, I don't know, maybe it was here that I heard you really have to take some of these death records with a grain of salt because they're not the ones providing the information. It's somebody else with a third, you know, they're not telling who their parents are, so somebody else is saying this, right? So.
Where did you get the image of the death record? Because the ones I found have been mostly like they just report and it doesn't have like that much. And even the last one that you had that stated the yellow fever, where did you find that?
So go back one, Tony, for me. So this was actually on the Louisiana State site. So every state, or a lot of states, have their own archives that they'll keep and stuff like that. So this was the Louisiana State death record site. That I found this one. If you go to the next one, this, you can actually find this same record on Ancestry, but this specific copy I have here, I ordered through VitalCheck. So VitalCheck, it's just like as if you were to go get your own birth record, you can get birth records for your parents or your relatives, your grandparents. You can go apply for their birth certificate or death certificate or whatever the case. And this is her death certificate that I applied for through VitalCheck, and the state of Pennsylvania sent it to me. So, yeah. Yeah, and then this is her grave site that we actually just went and saw. So my last trip was very successful to Pennsylvania. Was able to get a lot of history, a lot of oral history, meet some cousins and aunts and stuff that I never knew about. Some of the stuff with that. They said they've had boxes of information, some of it's been donated away. They said they had letters and they just never kept, and pictures, and so that was a little bit kind of disheartening to hear that, but hopefully the stuff that they did keep we can kind of tie together and I can add to my book. And I had set myself a limit of 200 pages when I wrote this book, just because, like I said, I don't like to spend money. So one, I felt like I wanted to keep it kind of short, and then on the other side, over 200 pages, they bump you to the next price bracket of the book. So I was like, so I was like, I'm going to keep it to 200 pages on the book. But if there's letters and pictures and all this other stuff to throw in, I'm going to have to go over the book. So, yeah. Go ahead, Tony. So this is another research tool that I used. We talked a little bit about some of these, but this is like, it's called Indici Decennali, and so this is like a 10-year index of births, and they have the same things for different, I guess, deaths and a bunch of different things. So it's a 10-year index with names and things like that you can look and see. It can tell when and where they're born a little bit. But I was able to find the birth record of my second great-grandfather from the index, and I was able to go look at exactly where that index pointed me to, and it was in that book. So, go ahead. So this is the record here that we were talking about with the wheel. He didn't have parents listed. What it says is that he was left on the wheel at the church. So basically, this was a contraption where a mother, it's like your first version of like a safe spot for a baby to be dropped off kind of thing. So they would drop the baby off and the wheel would go into the church. They'd be protected from the elements and nobody would know who dropped them off. So that was his situation with that. And like I said earlier, using other family members' documents can help. This was my great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother's sister's record, and I was able with that to narrow down, see it says Comune di Bagheria, and so that was, I never knew that was a town that was tied to my family, but when I was able to look at this, I said, okay, well let me go look at their records, and when I did, that's when I started getting more and more information, so. And this kind of just verified that information with it. So this was a wedding record that was in Campo Felice for my great-grandmother's brother, and it pointed me back towards that city, Bagheria. And so, but it was in Campo Felice where they were actually getting married. So this is the record that they had tied to go back to that city. So I was able to use that to search those records. This is on Family Search. Go ahead, Tony. There was a lot of red herrings on the search, and like I said, I started searching different cities based on different records, and sometimes they would turn up nothing, and sometimes they would turn up something. This was for the town of Cefalù, which is right next to the city where my family's from, and it says that on this record here, where the red arrow is, that when she had this child, she was just kind of passing through the city and had the child there. So, but it was the next town over, so yeah. This is a picture of an index, kind of what we were talking about earlier. You can go to the back of these books, so you don't have to search page by page by page. You can go to the very back, and sometimes they'll have an index. So there's Anna Maria Fardella, tells me which record number to go to, which is 249. So if I was to go into that book and go to number 249, it would show her record. So you can, it shows 1 million views when you're starting to look through some of these records or whatever, but you narrow it down to the year, you start looking at the back of the book, you can see where there's indexes and things like that you can look through. Going to talk a little bit about Italian citizenship documents, which is part of my book there. Most of the documents from this point forward had to be turned into the Italian consulate for my Italian citizenship process. Go ahead, Tony. The process for getting the birth documents digitally sent from my comune took about a week. So a week for them to respond and send me the documents back that I asked for digitally. Sent them an email containing the information, which we already talked about, for both my great-grandparents. They sent it back to me in a PDF form. And not wanting to take any chances on if the consulate would accept the PDF or not, I asked them for the physical copies. And of course they wouldn't have accepted the PDF, so that was a good thing that I did ask that. They asked me for the self-addressed stamp envelope, €8, and I sent that all to them, and within about a month I had all the documents in hand that I needed, and those documents are in the book, and we'll show them right here.
Where'd you get the Italian stamps from for the self-addressed?
It was US. Yeah, I went to my post office and said, hey, I'm looking to send something back from Italy, and I want to send this to Italy and back from Italy, and they sold me this big kind of package envelope and probably 10 stamps and said, here you go.
Oh,
Yeah, so, yeah, and so, yeah. Most of the documents listed cost money that I'm going to talk about here. Certified documents from NARA, which is like your census files, your alien files, all this kind of stuff, typically cost between like 15 to 25 a piece at this point. And then the naturalization certificate that I had to get was about 65, I think, for that. So, and this is the certificate that we found at the beginning of the presentation for my great-grandfather. So what they're looking for is the last living relative in Italy that was born there, that came here, and tracing that all the way down. And this is what they sent me back. It's a blue stamped document there that's official, and this is what the consulate accepts, is that one that's on the right, and that's the one for my great-grandfather. And this is the same document, but for my great-grandmother. Same thing, you know, I just did it both at the same time, and they sent me both at the same time back.
How many did you need people, just one, or?
Yeah, so I had to get my great-grandfather because he was born in Italy, and then I got my great-grandmother's. I think I needed that too. I turned it in and they accepted it. Okay. But I got both of them, and then of course their marriage and stuff like that. So yeah, but all of this was received because I was able to provide information from the documents that you can find on Family Search.
So basically, in general, when you write to Italy, and in your particular case, because you're going for citizenship, they will give you that extract. Maybe it says estratto on the top, I can't read it from here.
Yep.
But, so it's not a historical document from that point of view. The copy you get from Family Search or Antenati is the actual document that was written at the time. And right, as you tell them, it's birth number 495 from the year 1881 or whatever, that makes their life easier, so they'll make your life easier.
That's right.
So that's important. You don't just say, hey, I have no idea where my great-grandfather was born or what year. You find it and send it to me. You might not get that kind of luck. But when you find it here, and then you send for the other copy, and it's the only kind, as I say, that they'll send you by law. And that you can then turn into the consulate by law.
And I had somebody at the previous workshop kind of reach out and ask a little bit about this, and she had one of these for one grandparent from like 2017 or something like that. And the way I understand it, at least the way the consulate explained it to me, was that they'll accept documents that are like 6 months or newer. So it's got to be pretty quick when you get these things that at least that you've applied for it. And sometimes getting an appointment takes a while, and they know that. But I don't think you can bring them something from like 10 years ago that you got and bring it. So pretty new.
About how long did it take to get the citizenship, approximately?
About 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years. Yeah. Go ahead, Tony. And so this is the ship record that was provided. It shows my great-grandfather at the age of 15 coming into Palermo. This is the boat he came in on. And this is all found from Family Search. You can find these records. This was another one that was hard to find just because it was misspelled, and so I had to go by his naturalization document, and even the date on his naturalization document wasn't right. So I'm like looking above and below years, and like, was it this boat? Was it this boat? And looking through every single record, and finally you find the one that you're looking for. So.
Is that the one you left for the United States?
Yep. And this is his wife and her older brother entering the U.S. in 1911. You can see where they're going, and found some oral history while we were on this last trip in Pittsburgh that she really kind of had somebody in Italy she already wanted to marry. Not necessarily my great-grandfather, but she came over, and I guess it wasn't a very good experience for her. When she got here, there was a lot of kind of fighting between other races and things at Ellis Island, and but he ended up showing up. He brought her a fur coat and said, "Let's go to Pittsburgh." So, So this is my great-grandfather's initial declaration of intention in 1912. I don't quite know what happened with this document because he applied, all the information lined up, But my thought is that he let this expire after 7 years, because if he had got citizenship at this point, we wouldn't have been eligible, because none of my, grandparents or any of them weren't born yet. So that would cut the line. But he let this expire, I guess, and didn't ever pursue until years later. This is through Allegheny County. This is their marriage record of my great-grandfather and great-grandmother. I didn't check the boxes down here in my picture, so I probably need to for the apostille. If you're ever going to do citizenship, it needs to be apostilled so that Italy will accept it and things like that. But so this is the record that the County of Allegheny sent me. Go ahead and go next. Yep, and it shows where they were married, the date and the year they were married. She was a minor at the time, but she was also 18, so I don't know. I think that the age of consent might have been 21 or something like that for this, but it says right there she was 18, but also a minor. So there you go. And then I use census records. I did provide these to the consulate as well. This was the 1920 and 1930 census. Shows kind of what they were working in. He was in steel work pretty much his entire life, and her later life she was a cook. But they just want to see that tie of the generation going down. So you've got your great grandparents, they're married, they're living together, they've got these kids, the names are lining up, all that kind of stuff when they're going at the consulate to tie this back. So go ahead. And this is the 1940 and 50 census. I haven't been able to find a 1950 census for my great-grandfather. He died shortly after that, but I did find their divorce record in 1945. So she was living by with her couple of her kids in 1950, but in 1940 all the information was about the same. So, and then this is the second kind of declaration of intention that he went through. This one had his picture, this one had all the kids' names on it, and I ordered that from NARA. I think it was $25 or something like that for that one. Also it says keep the envelope, because the consulate will want the envelope that the stuff comes into.
Is that supposed to you?
No, this is the NARA red ribbon, so this is the certified from NARA document. Yeah. So they said that the situation that they were presented with this was pretty rare, and that was that he was actually denied citizenship, I guess, because of the war, and then he objected to that ruling, and then they withdrew the objection, and then they proceeded with the citizenship. But there was only a short period of time. Dominic will probably know better than me on that, of how long that period of time when they were kind of denying citizenships and then allowing people to get it based on the war. But according to the consulate, this was a pretty short period of time that they were not letting people become American citizens.
Yeah, well, 1942 especially.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, in the wartime. Yeah. So. And so this is the 1938 petition of naturalization. Same information, all lined up. He had a couple character witnesses, which I found out one of them was a family member, the one on the right, which I don't think was supposed to happen, but different last names, so they didn't know. So he had a character witness there, and this was a very important document for my search, especially my citizenship search, because this is his oath of allegiance and the date that he became a citizen. So any child born after that would not have been eligible for Italian citizenship based on that. So all the children before were, and their children were. It also provides the certificate number.
Excuse me, can you explain that again?
Yeah,
That's
so-
why I thought it was hard to get a citizenship, so it has to do with the.
It has to do with the order of birth. So basically, he's an Italian citizen until this point, and he is passing his citizenship down to his kids.
Okay.
It's a bloodline. So, but the minute he becomes an American citizen and he says, I no longer want any part of Italian citizenship, that's when he cuts it off, and any of his kids after that point would have been cut off. So, but because it was, my grandfather was born before this point, that in turn made me eligible for
What
that.
was the date?
So he became a citizen in 44, and my grandpa was actually born in 23. So, yeah.
So Italy recognizes the blood over like us, it's American soil. If you're born in American soil, you're an American. Italy recognizes it if you're born in Italy and your children have not, sorry, and you haven't given up your Italian citizenship, that passes down to your descendants until you cut it with that documentation.
That'd be like, say, if your grandfather was born in Italy and he came here, and say he became a citizen in 1940,
Okay.
but your dad was born in 1930, under that right of blood law, your dad is still considered an Italian citizen, because he was born, he was born before your grandfather became a
And
US
that's still
citizen.
passed to you.
Yeah.
So I have to see like which grandfather that would be. or
There's
which
there's
grandmother
stories
that
of
would be.
people who's, you know, based on this kind of stuff, somebody got a citizenship and then had kids after, and some kids are eligible and some are not, just based on really whenever they said, I don't want to be an Italian citizen anymore, I want to be an American, and gave up that right. So, but they couldn't give it up for their children because their children didn't have an option in that. So
Do they have to give up the Italian citizenship to become an American citizen?
at that point, I think it was, yeah. So
Wow.
in that oath right there, it says you kind of renounce all allegiance to any, yeah.
What about your children?
They're eligible, yeah, yeah. So
And you've already
yeah.
been approved.
Yeah, we've been approved, so they're good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just waiting on one document
Yeah.
from the county,
Yeah.
our marriage, because.
No, no. So go ahead, Tony. Go ahead, Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've had a bad deal with Cook
Yeah.
County, getting documents from them, getting responses.
Yeah.
We're waiting on one marriage paper
So-
that they wanted a specific way, and then we're done.
Yeah.
You know, but he was already approved through the consulate. This all looks good, we just need this one paper redone, and you're in.
Yep. So this is the alien car, A file is what they call it, and I think this was another $25. A lot of this can be found on Family Search as well, but also some of it was not, so it's pretty interesting there. Go ahead, next. And then there's some pictures and his alien identification card that I found on there. You can see kind of where he was
He added
living.
the color.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Is that- You have a question?
How'd you get them so clear? Cause I got my grandfather's, maybe, I think there's two ways that they send you.
Yeah, yeah, so
Because I got the real blurry version.
some of them do come pretty blurry. I had to clean these up. Yeah, I had to clean these up. These were pretty blurry
Yeah, mine
when I
too.
first got them. Yeah, actually, these weren't too bad. The citizenship certificate was pretty blurry.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
use the software,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but it shows no parole record. It shows letters there. It shows when it was mailed, where it was mailed to, where he was living, and we actually on our last trip went and saw this house.
Oh, cool.
So, and there was some old stained glass in the windows. It was pretty cool. So, yeah, go ahead. As we've already mentioned multiple times, lots of misspellings and things like that. So as you can see there, they show that he was born in March 8th, 1881, which was not really his birthday, and in Campo Felice, which is not the city he was born in, it's Campo Felice. So somebody else must have kind of typed this up, I'm not sure, but it did match up with his address, and basically this story here says that he had his card in his coat pocket at his garage at his job. And it was in his coat. The garage had a fire, and his coat burned with his certificate card in the pocket of. So he lost his ID card in a fire. So he reapplied, and they had the records of that, and they sent them to me in that file. This is where they listed him as an alien enemy due to be an Italian citizen, and his children were actually fighting in World War II for America. And while he was being denied American citizenship, listed as an alien enemy. So, yeah, and one of them actually died in the war, which we can see here. Yep. So this is the final kind of document to that, and then this is his registration card for World War II. He was 61 at the time, working for a place called Forbes Motor Sales, and living in Allegheny County. It shows he was born in Italy there. I turned that in as well to the consulate. Next. And then these were address record cards based off the alien registration. Kind of just showed where he was working, where he was living. And go ahead, go to the next one. Turns out that all aliens of enemy nationalities, so it's written there in Italian, German, and Japanese, they all had to register and do these cards back in that time period. And then this is his World War I registration card. He was 38 years old, working at Westinghouse Manufacturing Company as a laborer. Showed that he was married and sound for war, but I don't think he, according to records I found, he never did go into either of the wars. And then this is the certificate. This is what they're really looking for at the consulate. They're looking for that date down there, the March 17th, 1944, where he was living, his signature, and basically him saying he's going to be an American citizen there. So he was granted citizenship. And like you said, this one was really blurry. I had to clean this up. And I know I've had a conversation with Dominic before about colorizing some of this stuff because it did not come in color. But that was for my own record. I wanted to see him in color, and so yeah. Next. And then this is his death record. So death record in 1953. Once again, a vital records, vital check, just applied for it and got this document. It shows down there he was buried at St. Adalbert's Cemetery. When we went this last trip, we weren't able to find him there, and I think there was some falling out with him and his wife, is what I heard. And she just kind of like, okay, you're over here, no stone, no marker, no nothing. So, yeah, so there was some really bad, falling out, I think, there. But a lot of this stuff too, you start looking at these death records and you can actually get some like health information and heart, a lot of people have heart issues in the family and things like that. So you can start tracing that back. It's another helpful kind of thing with these records. And actually saw that he was in a state hospital when he passed away. So go ahead, Tony. So I was able to ask the state for his medical records because he was in the state hospital. So this was not found on Family Search or anything else. This was me having to ask them for those records, and I went ahead and got his records there. So shows he was admitted in April 25th, 1953. He died in June 1953. Showed that he had myocarditis, and it even shows when he passed away that the time was at 12:17, and then he was rolled out the door at 6:40. So they have all of that recorded there at the state hospital. So, yep. And then this is his wife's record, and once again, this wasn't her giving this information, so the father's name on this is wrong. It wasn't Peter Noto, but everything else on here pretty much lines up, and we were able to see her grave when we went on this last trip. Okay. And then this is my grandfather's birth certificate, another vital check deal there. I went ahead and got that, and he was, I thought his name was Anthony, it was actually Antonio. And then you can see the age difference of 42 for his dad and 28 for his mom. And so that tied up. I had to give this as well to the consulate. Next. His World War II compensation card showed how long he served, how much money he made serving, and the people that were tied to him for that. So, and another registration card there. Go ahead next. And there's pictures of him. So, yep, got some pictures of my grandpa there. Yep. So that's his military. That's him with my aunt. Next. And military photo, another picture with my aunt. And then him later in life, he worked on planes, and he actually helped with Vietnam and World War II. So, and then this is my grandmother and him with my mom, and their marriage certificate. So this was a complete crapshoot. I could not find their marriage record anywhere. I knew that they both liked Las Vegas. I knew that they both. I knew that they were both living in California. And I knew when my mom was born. So I just kind of was like, okay, well, let me go back to the previous year. Let me check Vegas just out of like, can I just find, I had no idea where they're, and my grandma wasn't talking, like I said, so, and he's not alive, so and my mom didn't know, so it was like, I'm just going to guess, and Turns out that's where they were married. So it was in Las Vegas on Christmas Eve of 1966. Yeah. Yeah. So once I presented my grandma with this information, she said, "Yeah, we made a trip down to Las Vegas on Christmas Eve." So she wouldn't tell me, but then yeah. So yeah. Then this is my grandfather's death certificate. He died in 1995. He was in Hollywood, Florida at the time, and it shows his dad's and mom's name, and that is accurate on there. This is where things got a little bit odd. Was this left document here? This was the divorce between him and my grandma, and basically all rights were given to my grandma with no visitation to him at all. And so that was where the Italian line kind of got cut off from us as far as word of mouth stories and things like that. We didn't get any of that history. I'm building it back now, but it was cut.
This is the divorce of the people that got married in Vegas?
Yeah.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
hoping that would have worked out.
No, surprisingly enough, Vegas marriage didn't work out. Yeah.
Barbara said it was a gamble.
It was a gamble. Yeah. It was a gamble. So they were married in 66, and they were divorced in 69. So it didn't last very long. Yeah.
And you blacked out because living.
Yeah, I didn't. I know that we had covered before living relatives. You're probably okay in your family history to publish and stuff. I just didn't know with living people. I blacked their names out, just out of until I talk to them and say, hey, I'm doing this and I want to. Yeah. So. So this is other information, self-help, and other sources of info. Obituaries. Somebody mentioned obituaries earlier, and that is it showed this was my grandpa's sister, and she was born in Pittsburgh, and shows the mother and father's name, showed where they kind of moved to, and even she liked to go to Las Vegas, it said, so there you go. Runs in the family. Yeah.
And what site do you look for the obituaries?
This was just a Google search of her
Yeah.
name. Like I started looking at her name and
Yeah.
just Google, and it just popped up. So
When
Yeah.
you use past census to look up
Yeah,
brothers,
use-
sisters, then look for their obituary.
past census or even the
Yeah.
naturalization documents that you can find, those are all on Ancestry, and like I said, if you go to the Family Search Center, you don't even have to pay for that. You can just go in there and do it. But so this was Paul Venturella, which was my grandfather's brother. We actually went and saw him when we were there too. We went to Arlington, Virginia. He's in the cemetery there, and that's his grave. I did some research on this, and it turns out that based on the date and where he was and where he passed away, there was a battle called the Ruhr Pocket, where about 10,000 American lives were lost, where the World War II was ending. We were coming into Germany and kind of trying to finish things off there, and there was a lot of hesitation there and resistance, and he passed away there. So next. This was a flow chart that I just put in my book to help people out, kind of looking and seeing if you have the name of your ancestor, yes or no. If it's yes, you can search Family Search, Antonati, Ancestry, Ellis Island, census records, phone directories, USCIS, NARA, vital records, courthouses, all of these sources there. And if you've successfully found it, yes or no. And if it was yes, you can kind of go and start recording that. And if it was no, try other spellings and variations and kind of go back around and start from your father and mother. That's kind of my main tip that I found with my stuff, is just work your way from stuff that back out, and that helped me a lot. If you're jumping all over, things can get mixed up and confused a lot. So next, this is a little bit about the citizenship process. This is directly from the consulate in Houston site. Kind of tells you about direct descent and different situations that people could have to get citizenship and how that process looks. And below is kind of the state consular network. So if you're in Illinois, of course it covers Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas. It's a big range. Everybody who would want to do that would have to come to Chicago. I'm luckily down there in Arkansas is where I live now, originally from Chicago, but live in Arkansas, so I was able to go down to Houston and do my process there. Then on the left side, This is a message that if you're gonna go for it, you might have to get used to seeing that there's no appointments available because it's not, it's a long process and not easy. This was about 6 months of just trying to get an appointment. So every Wednesday they'd open up, for the Houston one, at midnight Rome time, they open up like 2 appointments for like 6 months out. And so I would have to go in there and I'm fighting everybody and, you know, the servers are bogged down, but eventually I ended up getting one. And so that was a really good day for me to get that. So next. And then this is the actual paperwork that they gave me of all the stuff that I turned into them. Their checklist of, you know, the birth certificate, the marriage certificate, all apostilled, all translated, death certificates all the way down. So this was all the records that they,
Get it all translated.
translated and apostilled into Italian.
Oh,
Thanks.
You did this in Chicago or Pittsburgh?
I did this part of the process in Houston.
Houston.
Yeah, in Houston. Yeah.
For everybody here would be.
Everybody,
Chicago.
everybody here would be Chicago. Yeah. And this was just the back, the exact same thing. I had to turn in my passport, my driver's license, utility bill, all the stuff proving I lived in the region and this kind of stuff. So, thanks, Tony. Some of the other sources I use, this is like the archives, National Archives for Alien Files, USCIS Genealogy Program, Family Search. These are all open sources that you can kind of start looking for stuff if you wanted to. Next. Diocese of Cefalù. I think somebody else, maybe Dan said he sent some money away to them and they didn't ever send anything back. I no, so yeah, I've had a similar situation of they weren't too helpful. I went to that building and they weren't very helpful over there. So with that part of it, the city was pretty helpful, but the diocese wasn't really helpful. But mileage may vary on that. Ancestors portal. There's the phone records and address books and things that somebody was asking about earlier. That's right there. And then of course the town hall of my city of my ancestors. Thanks. Final tips. Work your way backwards, starting from you and your parents. Use multiple sources of information to cross-reference. Watch out for misspellings. When you hit a wall, start branching out and using siblings and find your way around with that, and just have patience and fun because it is like a puzzle, big puzzle. So, next. And that's my mother and I, the day of my citizenship appointment, right there at the consulate. And then this is me and my family on the beach of Campo Felice di Rocella, hometown of my ancestors for over 200 years.
There's me.
So,
We'll have lunch now, and then after this, we'll have a little discussion of the work of Anthony, and we'll have as our leader Martine.
Very good.